My name is Brad Suter. I'm Superintendent of Design, Planning and Natural Resources with the City of Tampa Parks and Recreation Department. This meeting tonight is a culmination of almost 7 years of work that we started back in '06. So I want to thank you for your attendance tonight, and a couple of housekeeping items. There are restrooms in the back. I hope you've had an opportunity to sign the sign-in sheets. And there are also comment cards that we would like to get your comments. You can drop them off with us tonight, or you can mail them in to us at your leisure. We would like you to mail them in maybe within a couple weeks because we're still gathering information on this project as we go through the process. And I'd like to give you a little backstory, and then I have a couple invited guests to speak on some specifics of the plan so that you get a better understanding. Like I said, back in '06, we had a series of 3 public meetings after we heard of plans for a redevelopment of Central Park Village by the Housing Authority. And as we started to do some research on Perry Harvey Park and the surrounding area, we really became aware of how special this area is. The music history here is incredible, and I'm sure you've heard a lot of the stories. The cultural development of a whole community that thrived for over 150 years is, again, a story worth telling and recapturing in this park that we have today. Several events happened. You know, there was high-speed rail studies, other research studies that kind of led to us to continue our planning that there were no significant structures within the park itself. So through the 7-year process that we've gone to date, I just kind of want to walk you through some of them. And really, you got to start with where we were with the public meetings. As some of you may remember that were part of it, the first meeting was a little tumultuous. There was a strong contingent in thought that we were just going to tear down the existing skate bowl and we were just going to celebrate the cultural history. Once the word was presented that we aren't looking just to tear down the skate bowl, but that skating would still be part of the park was what was being proposed and considered by all factions and all parts of the community that were solicited. We really started to organize in a conceptual manner. What came up at the end of the 3 public meetings was active recreation to the northern section of the site that could also help serve a future middle school that was being proposed at the time. The central part of the site would be more multi-purpose for festivals, art fests, pickup games, open fields, open space to do just a variety of activities, and then more of a passive recreation on the southern end of the park. And also with this being the closest to the downtown core, this would act as almost another gateway into this redevelopment and help connect it to the park and to the city fabric as a whole. As we went through this process, we put out a request for qualifications to design firms, architecture engineering teams, and Kimberly Horn was selected through that process to help us start developing a little bit more detailed plan from this very rough, almost a bubble diagram plan, to really start taking this plan forward and seeing how we're going to incorporate these elements, how it's going to be tied to the Encore project. When we started this project early on, Central Park Village really didn't have an identity as Encore. But with that music theme being so strong and reverberating throughout, it was called Encore. The first building that's going up is called Ella, after Ella Fitzgerald. The Trio is coming next, and their main mall, which intersects directly with Perry Harvey Park, is being named Ray Charles Jr. Boulevard. So to stay in concert with what this concept plan was, the south node is going to act as a gateway. It's going to have an interactive fountain that will be programmable to music, and it'll have light shows. And we believe this can be a draw on weekend nights that people can come and sit either under the terrace, shade terrace, and watch it. And there'll be other also sitting opportunities and viewing opportunities in this area. There will be a restroom close by there. To the next main section up there's going to be a performance area that can hold small concerts and other venues. And then there's going to be a loop around the entire park, which is about 3/4 of a mile, which people can exercise, but also it can be the basis for those jazz fests with vendors and display booths. As we start on the southern end, an important concept of this plan is to have a history walk that continues up along Central Avenue. It'll highlight events throughout the 150 years of this site's development. And there's some very conceptual plans right now of how that goes. Some of that will be a timeline in the pavement. Other parts of that will be brought out in 3 dimensions, so you just don't read history, but actually feel it and kind of understand maybe the style of the time of something that was being created at that time. And another important part is the central park, or the central part where these 2 malls intersect, and a statue of Perry Harvey Sr. will be there, which is really the intersection of the development in the park, along with Leaders Row, which gets down to a little bit more specific of the individual community leaders that had an impact here, the Moses Whites and many others. As we go north, we get more into picnicking areas and more active recreation potential, and then a larger skate park at the very northern end of the site, which is 3 times the size of the existing skate park. Now, these were all considered and developed and are continuing to be developed in a very sensitive way. When we finish these public meetings, a community advisory committee was formed because we just didn't want to leave anything on the table as far as the cultural history of this area. And the advisory committee met for a year, once a month, to develop a program that we wanted to incorporate into the various aspects of this park. And I'm going to ask Fred Hearns to come up and kind of speak on what that program developed and how we got here.
Thank you, Brad, and good evening, everybody. Can you all hear me? Okay, after 40 years, we're finally here. Let me just say that it's a pleasure to stand before you. I served as chairman of the City of Tampa Citizen Advisory Committee for Perry Harvey Park back in 2006 and 2007. I'm going to recognize the members of that committee. Several are here this evening. But when the process began, as Brad said, back in October, this is just a little background, so those of you who were not involved will know how we got to this point. Back in October 2006, I was employed by the City of Tampa as director of the Department of Community Affairs. So as a city department head, I formed this committee. We reached out to people whose parents and other relatives had operated businesses on Central Avenue, as well as some other people who we knew had a special interest in the area. We did meet for almost a year, as Brad said. At the end of those meetings, we came up with what we thought was an excellent plan, and at that time, we were told that the partnership between the City of Tampa, Bank of America, and the Tampa Housing Authority was going to budget some $3.5 million. I think that was the original fee, Brad. And since that time, that figure has risen to $6.5 million. That's the total budget for this project. There's been a very detailed process, several meetings held, to make sure that we recognize the people that the committee as well as this community thinks are deserving of that recognition. I also want to tell you a little about what happened between 2007 and now. As you all know, we had a little something called a recession that knocked everybody off their feet. We hadn't had anything like that in 80 years. Also, as I remember, Brad, there was a court case that I think tied this process up. And so it looked like we didn't know which direction we were going to go in as far as the project. But what we were able to do is put together, I think, a team that has looked at everything that needs to be recognized as much as possible, because at one time or another, there were over 100 black-owned businesses on Central Avenue. There is no way to build something that's going to pay tribute to 100 businesses. We all know that. But I'm going to ask the members of that advisory committee who are here to come up and stand with me. This was not my plan. This was our plan as a group. Our vice chair, Sonia Harvey McCoy. Come on up, Sonia. And everybody else come up and just give your name. And if you want to say a word about the business that you were affiliated with, as well as we have some descendants of some business owners here. I'm going to ask you to stand where you are if you would. So committee members, if you will, give your name. If you want to say a word or two about the business or the location that your family was a part of, now is the time. You can either come here up or stand where you are, but Sonia first, please.
I am the first grandchild of Perry Harvey Sr. This is intense for me, and I thank Mr. Hearns and the City of Tampa for allowing me to be a part of this. I learned so much as a member of this committee, and I found people that passionately felt things about Central Avenue that I never knew. This guy is a walking encyclopedia on the history of Tampa. There was one man I talked to that I honestly cannot remember his name, but I came here tonight because of him. He told me about an area called the Scrubs. Am I correct? Is the Scrub? Okay. He cried, and the one thing he told me, and this is why I knew it was bigger than me. The one thing he said to me, "You're Perry Harvey's granddaughter?" I said, "Yeah." And he went on to tell me how good my grandfather had been to him. That's the connection that Central had. Those business members down there took care of their community. Thank you, Fred, for allowing me to be a part.
My name is James Tokley. I'm the poet laureate for the City of Tampa. My father walked the streets, played the streets of Central Avenue as a child, and my grandfather died here. But it is my honor to have been part of the cultural aspect of Central Avenue. I was told to keep it short, so I shall do so. I will say this much to all of you. We are all children of Central Avenue. We are all children of Central Avenue. Furthermore, what wonder when a beautiful dream comes to reality. And so this is a plan that we don't have to worry about whether or not it's going to be. It is already. Let's give an applause for the fact that what we want and what we have dreamed about has come to pass. Can we do that? My time is up.
Good evening. I'm Ezel Denson, and 2006 I was chairman of the Mayor's African American Advisory Council, and I got here in June of 1970, and I was in uniform, and I wound up on Central Avenue because I was looking for the black neighborhood, and I found it. And I'm gonna tell you, when I got there, when nobody was in the, I went to a bar, and years later I found out that Miss Joyner, who's a state representative, senator, that was your dad. And I talked to him for about 4 hours, and he told me all about Central Avenue in Tampa. And when I left, I came back about a year later. They had begun to tear the place down, everything down. And I really was looking for the black neighborhood, and I found it. A beautiful place. I ate down there, and I met a lot of people, and I just loved it. And I couldn't wait to get back. And now I'm working on keeping up the legacy of Central Avenue, and I've done my best.
All right, all right.
Thank you. My name is Dorothy Harvey Keel. I'm Perry Harvey's baby daughter. I'm his baby. My sister Gustava is here also, and we just want to say thank you to the city and to everyone for coming to making this a reality, bringing it to fruition. And I'm so thankful that I'm here to experience it. It seems as if 4 of us have already gone on. So there are 3 of us left. There were 7 of us, and I'm the last of the crew. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and I just want to say ditto to everything everyone else has said.
Good evening. My name is Willie Robinson, and my father had a barbershop on Central. He was a business owner. He owned his own barbershop, and the barbershop was named Marshall Barbershop. And also that I was double on Central Avenue. Before my existence, there was a cab company called the Jackson Cab Company. If you know me in the community, you know I am hooked on to the Jackson House. My mother ran the Jackson House which was a rooming house where all the stars stayed at. And she also ran the Jackson Cab Company, because during segregation, the white cab companies would not take the black people into their community. So she formed her own cab company with her 2 sons, and they did just what they were supposed to do. So I am very proud, and I would like to say thank you to the City of Tampa for honoring people who have came before us and the shoulders that we are standing on. And I'm the first to be educated in my group, and that's only because of the hard work that my father cultivated me on Central Avenue. And when I say that my father, I'm paying homage to everybody else, to the Jonas, to the Moses Whites, to the Shirley Greens, to the Greasy Stand, to the Lincoln Theater, because those people helped raise me. And even the nightclubs. And because during the daytime, when I got out of school, if my father had barbers, I had to cut hair, he would send me to different places. I've been to the Pyramid, I've been to Miss Joyner and them, and those people would watch over me. And it was almost like a library to me, because they would sit me in a corner. So I did not participate in the grown-up part, but I sat in a corner and I did my homework, and each one of them checked on me to make sure that it was politically correct, because I went to St. Peter Claver and they did not play. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Herman Monroe, and I'm the historian of St. James Episcopal Church. The church was founded in 1891 in the area that was called the Scrubs. Many important things have happened in that area. The priest, the former priest of the church, did a lot of struggling to keep that church alive. And we want to thank the city and also the housing authority for keeping the building intact.
Let's give all these folk a big hand, please. Thank you. Y'all may be seated. Thank you. We're going to ask Senator Joyner and Betty Davis. I'm going to put her on the spot, and anyone else, very quickly, just come and say a word or two to us, because we know that you're children of Central Avenue.
Thank you, Fred, and thank you to the community for being here. And of course, I'm going to call Ozepha's name,
Yeah.
but I am a child of Central Avenue. Everything that I am and aspire to be is because I was raised on Central Avenue. A black kid was in heaven on Central Avenue, because every profession, every business that one could own was on Central. From lawyers and doctors to the movies, to the Greek stand, to Rogers Dining Room, to the Cotton Club, where Henry Joyner, my father, was the only black person in this town who owned his liquor license. And this was a time when police officers could not arrest anybody. Black police officers could only arrest black people during the span from Henderson to Cass on Central Avenue. But it was a wonderful time in our lives. I am so happy and thrilled to see the fruits of the labor of you, Fred, the committee, and the City of Tampa, because in 1974, the Cotton Club was the last place to close, because Henry Joyner said, I don't want to go. But we had no choice. And so it's something that our young people should know about. And, you know, we were all family. Mr. Andrews, Mr. C. Blythe Andrews Sr., the Florida Sentinel, was also on Central Avenue. And Mr. Moses White took me as their own. And every weekend I'd come home from college and find both of them, because I knew I'd get a $50 bill from both. But because every child belonged to them. We were family. We were that was the tribe. Central Avenue was a real tribe. And it's such an honor, and nothing is going to stop us from making this a reality. And I am just thrilled to be alive and to share it. And I know that Henry and Jean Joyner are smiling now, happy that, Fred, you dared to take the lead. You are a jewel and a prince to this community. And I want everybody to give him the applause that he's due.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. We have to cut off the comments, but I do want these people to give their name and just mention their business, Brad.
Okay.
I know we're running a little over.
Good evening. My name is Betty Davis, and my father was Lee Davis.
I'm Annie Mae Blake, and we had a beauty shop on Central Avenue in the good old days.
I'm Cheryl Rodriguez. My father, Francisco Rodriguez, was one of the first black attorneys in Tampa, and he fought for our rights. He spent his life doing that. So this is certainly symbolic of the work that he did throughout his life. Thank you, Fred.
Yes, my name is Marlon Lewis. My grandfather owned a pawn shop on Central, and he used to bring in acts, entertainment with Moles White, and I'm just proud to see this. I mean, you guys did a beautiful job.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna take my seat now. Ozepha Harris and Howard Harris were also part of this. Anybody ever eat at the Rogers Dining Room? Okay, and thank you all for coming. I asked Miss Dorothy Harvey Keel if she had a picture of Perry Harvey, because we're going to do a statue of him, a full-size statue of him. So I went by her house, I picked up the picture, and she said, now this is a good picture of my dad, but there are some other people on this picture. And I didn't look at it until I got home. And then I looked at the picture, and you know who the other people were? Well, one of them was Perry Harvey Jr., the other one was Hubert Humphrey, and the other one was Hank Aaron.
And thank you for your patience as we relive some of that history. It is important that it was a community-led committee. And as you can probably see just from this little taste that you had tonight, sitting for a year through those program meetings, that history was being brought out and brought up. It was really fascinating. But just as fascinating is Tino Parada from Team Pain.
How's it going, guys? Thank you very much. First of all, I'll tell you about myself. I'm Tito Parada. I work with Team Pain Skate Parks. We've been designing skate parks globally for over 20 years. I've been with the company for 12 years. We are all 100% skater owned and operated and based out of Florida, which is really important. A lot of the skate park industry is everywhere else. And so, we all grew up around here. Most of our team, half of our crew's from Colorado, but the ones from Florida also grew up skating, the Perry Harvey snake run. Little timeline on where we've been in regards to the experience. Back in '06, at the time, when the economy was lively and they were trying to do this development thing in the Encore development, they were talking about, redoing the park. I'm assuming this was sometime after that public input meeting where they found out the importance of the skate park. And they called us up and they asked us, hey, what do you think? And right off the bat, back then, we were, our big concern wasn't just, replicating the park. It's, the snake run is very important to a lot of people, myself included. We got, we learned a lot. We were going and traveling places. I would drive from Orlando to come skate this place, and then we'd move on the way to, all the way to Tarpon Springs back in the day where there's Astro Skate and a bunch of other spots. And, that experience was key, and then, I think a lot of people, aside from myself, experienced that. And so, this bowl itself is very important to, the skate community nationwide. So fast forward a little bit, the economy goes down. We didn't hear anything about it, so we just figured the project, kind of went away. Well, eventually, around 2010, the city started picking up the efforts of redoing the park, and we were lucky enough to partner with Kimley Horn that got awarded the project. We had a little background. We're based from Florida, so we felt we could, kind of back up some of some of the, pick up from 2006 and hopefully get the right things laid out. To us, one of the main important things, or what we call the design criteria, is what to preserve on the park. And I think, me, along with anyone else that experienced the place, the way it's ran, free, unfenced, unsupervised. The fact that you're not being bothered, that you can go there and skate. You don't have to pay someone to go. Just preserving its legacy of how it's always been. The vibe. Even more important than the actual hard elements of what to build. Operations. And the third thing, it's historical fact. I mean, no one doubts that, to the skate community and, where things are going in municipal parks, this was way ahead of its time. And so, to us, we understand from master plan perspective that they have, the plans is to move the bowl towards the north side. So, looking at the entire park, they wanted to have the active areas towards the north. And then, the central part of the park to kind of, do a lot of the historical stuff and then the main area. And so, we understood, and we also felt that it was best to preserve the vibe and all that, to kind of have a nice little corner on the top. And we are intending on hopefully being able to replicate the bowl, as close as possible with some, with some upgrades on the new location. We also mitigated the updating of it to be a full-service park in regards to updating it to today's skateboarding, which covers more than one discipline. Nowadays, it's not just going down a hill. That's what the bowl offered back then. It was ahead of its time. But now in the future, there's also street skating, and then there's probably 5 different disciplines that all happen to use a skateboard. On this park, it also allows bikes and pretty much any non-motorized thing down the hill. So, one of the things that we were surprised that the city embraces a 20,000 square foot park that actually has a replica of the actual snake run, an additional bowl, as well as a street plaza. But also, the amenities are super important. Being able to barbecue, being able to just easily park, shade areas. We're working around the existing trees, preserving all that. Getting concrete color and getting art involved in there. And also, really, truly having the same consistent history in the behalf of the skate portion of it, because we feel that that's important. It also goes throughout the constant theme of the entire park. Now, no one doubts the historical nature of the existing bowl. We went through every, we said, hey, can we move it? Concrete's a little brittle, probably will fall apart in doing so. We talked about many things. What can we do about, working on the same area, but the design and the master plan puts it in the north. So we felt best that the actual relocating and mitigating by actually having a larger, more complete park would kind of be the best way that we could represent as skate park consultants. So all in all, we are on a design process that we would call about 75%. There's still one missing aspect, and that's the input from the skate community. We actually are looking forward to having a skate park specific input meeting that I welcome everyone, especially the advocates that are working so passionately to get historical application towards the bowl. We want to get your input. We want to hear about all those details, because without us listening to you, really we're not doing our work. So in the next couple of weeks, I really ask everyone that's involved in the wheel aspects of the skate park to really show participation, come give us your input. But all in all, we really want to thank the City of Tampa for actually doing a park that for once it's the ideal park and model for the whole state. Free, unfenced, unsupervised, fun, no pad nannies, and actually completely serves the skate community from the beginner street skater all the way to the, old school snake run aficionado. So with that, I want to say thank you very much to the City of Tampa, and thank you enough for the advocates and skateboard advocates that are so passionately involved on this project.
A couple more just items of interest we failed to mention earlier is that there's been a call to artists to bring out art into this park to capture that cultural history. Over 170 artists turned in applications based on the scope and that the budget amounts that were targeted for certain areas. A couple of those areas would be the entrance portal with the 4 vertical elements that'll become very iconic and very visual from the driving. The Leaders Row, certainly, and the History Walk, and the statue of Perry Harvey Park. All critical elements that can be brought out best probably through art, as opposed to, even though Kimberly Horn's incredibly talented, there's something about art that's just going to bring that up a little bit to another level. Also, the city just recently awarded construction manager for this project, which is Cutler and Associates. They just came on board to start looking at the plans as they finalize in development. That will lead to a GMP, which is a guaranteed maximum price to construct the entire park. Right now, our timeline, we are looking to start construction in early 14. But with that said, many of you also know that we're also going through another process. And that process is, has to do with the historic designation that's in front of us right now. And it's just something that we embrace and we respect, and we're going to go through it. And the consultant that was hired by the Tampa Housing Authority, Ken Harden, is here with Janus Research, and he's going to come up and announce a date for that meeting that I would like to invite all of you back to. You know, tonight I said there's comment cards in the back. We want to capture your comments. After the presentation, the team is going to be around these 3 stations. Please come up and ask us questions. We have to be, we'd like to be closing up around 8 o'clock if we can. But that next meeting that's being held by Ken is where your comments are critical. They're going to be captured for what's called the 106 process, which he's going to explain a little bit, and that I need to hear 10 times because it keeps getting confusing for me. But that's critical. So if you could come back, I believe that meeting is here, same location on October 10th. So
October
with that,
10th at 6:30.
Ken Harden.
Thank you, Brad. I appreciate it. Yeah, as Brad said, I'm Ken Harden from Janus Research. I'm an archaeologist by training, but I'm head of a company that does cultural resource management all around the state. So what we're going to take a pause now to talk about Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act of 1966. We have federal money involved in this process, HUD money, and that says that, Section 106 says that we have to take into account the effects of any federally funded or licensed or assisted project on National Register eligible properties. Normally, as an archaeologist, or I have a lot of architectural historians, as we did for the Tampa Interstate Giant project, many in this room were part of that. I see Becky Clark and Dennis Fernandez, and even our poet laureate was part of that process. Normally, we are dealing with historic properties, historic districts, or archaeological sites, or Fort Brooke in downtown Tampa, where we had Native American burials. That was the genesis of the Seminole reservation we have now. But this is what we're dealing with now, is a very unusual type of property that's less than 50 years old, that advocates from this community raised and proposed a nomination that was accepted by the review board in Tallahassee. And it's on its way to the keeper in Washington, and there's no reason to believe that she will not accept that nomination. So what that means is we have a National Register historic property that we really have to, the process will challenge us to avoid adverse effects to that property. So part of what we're going to have to do is do good faith consultation. That means take everyone's opinion, passion, evaluation in a very open process, a very good faith process. That means we all really take each other's opinion into account and document that. That process will challenge us to avoid effects to this park, including moving. A lot of people will say moving or replicating that could be an adverse effect. So we'll try to avoid effects to that park. If we can't do that, we'll try to minimize effects to that park. And only if all else fails will we do mitigation for that park. So what we want to do, we can't get into the nuts and bolts of that today, but what we want to try to do on October 10th is maybe talk about that a little bit more. We can call on people in the audience that have been part of this in the past, and we can go over what that is, because we're going to have to form a committee of people, just like the advisory council that Fred had. We're going to have to form a committee of people that are going to invest their time and effort so that it goes beyond an hour or two, because people are really going to have to get to know each other and really understand each other's perspective and come up with solutions that maybe somebody else will accept. If we end up having to do something to that park, which this process really is challenging us not. This process really says we have a very valuable historic property. The fact that in Tallahassee says that it's so important that they're going to throw away the rule that it has to be 50 years old, that says something. I'm just telling you, it says something for what they think about that. So this is going to be a challenge for all of us. And so I really appreciate it. On the 10th, we want to talk about it a little bit more. What we want to try to do is get people there's some obvious people that are going to be part of this committee that have been in the past, like Dennis Fernandez, our Historic Preservation Officer, and Becky Clark, President of Tampa Preservation, the advocates for the skate park, the city, the Housing Authority. But what we also want to do is make sure that we have representatives from the community that are going to be able to commit that time and effort and stick with us to go through this process and really learn more. You want to know about skate. You're going to learn all about skating. We're going to learn all about skating and the mechanics of skating. We're going to know, and people are also going to learn a lot about, the skaters are going to learn a lot about the history of Central Park. I mean, there's going to be all kinds of stuff going on. So that's going to be part of what we're going to have to do. So next week, or the October 10th, when we come back here, maybe we can get you to think about, talk amongst yourselves, who do you think would be an appropriate representative for that, and then we can kind of schedule those out and what that is going to be like. If we have to move that park or do mitigation for that park, which is what the process is trying to get us to avoid, we're going to have to come up with a legal document that we're going to have to get signatures. This is a legal document, so this is a hard thing. The State Historic Preservation Office that wants us to preserve it, they're going to have to sign a document that says we can move it or we can otherwise have an adverse effect to it. We're going to have somebody from the HUD sign this document. So this is a big thing. All things are possible within this process, but it really is going to take a lot of work and good focus for us to do that. So I appreciate y'all's attention and the City of Tampa and the community and the skateboard community for recognizing this is very interesting. It's going to be an interesting process for us. Thanks, Brad.
And Ken, I might state the obvious that that meeting might need to be scheduled for a few additional hours than this one was. Because, like I said, it's very important to capture the comments. That's why even the comments that you write tonight and leave here or send back to us, that all helps. We've been documenting comments since the public meetings in '06. We intend to use all that's been said. So, like you said, it's really important to be just part of this process and see where we go. We believe we've done an earnest effort to bring out the best of, offer the community and all users of the park the very best of the best, and we really hope to see this through fruition. So thank you very much. Like I said, the design team will be at different stations if you have specific questions tonight. Otherwise, book your calendars for October 10th. Thank you.